Hi everyone, I'm Liz Stein, the Communications Director for South by Southwest EDU. Welcome to our next panel, Momentum and Movement, Black Women in Film. Today we'll hear from Crystal Harrell, Senior Director of Corporate Communications from Procter & Gamble, and B. Monét, the director of the film Black Girls from Never Whisper Justice, as they outline their efforts to address systemic inequality in advertising and media. They are joined by Rosemonde Pierre-Louis, Chief Operating Officer of NYU McSilver Institute for Poverty Policy and Research, and Cydney Tucker, Director at House of Tulip. Before we get started, quick reminder, during the Q&A, please remember to ask questions through the Engage button on the session page in the South by Southwest EDU Go app and upvote your questions. I will now turn it over to these powerhouse women to take it from here.
Great to see everybody.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our panel titled Momentum and Movement, Black Women in Film. I'm Rosemonde Pierre-Louis, Chief Operating Officer at the McSilver Institute for Poverty Policy and Research at the NYU McSilver Institute. And I'm also the host of season 2 of the podcast Black Boys and Men, Changing the Narrative. So I'm so excited to serve as your moderator for the next hour. We're here today to talk not only about Black women in film, but to explore the images of Black women and girls on a variety of screens, film, TV, streaming services, and on social media. We'll also discuss the importance of having Black women behind the camera in positions of power. I'd first like to thank Never Whisper Justice and Procter & Gamble for co-hosting this discussion with the McSilver Institute. So you'll get to hear from these incredible women who are creatives and thought leaders and really in the forefront of communications and film and directing and producing. And we'll learn more about what your organizations are doing and really putting forth positive depictions of Black women and giving a platform for talent. So instead of me introducing everybody, I want to make sure that these incredible women get the opportunity to introduce themselves. So first and foremost, we'll have B. Monét. Please introduce yourself, and then we'll go right down the line. And it's great to see all of you.
Thank you guys so much for having us. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to talk to you a little bit more with these incredible women about image making. And that's what I consider myself to be. I'm a writer-director who focuses on specifically the Black woman experience. But I say that we're in the business of also making and forwarding the landscape of images of Black folks. So thank you guys for even having this discussion with us.
Wonderful. Hi, I'm Crystal Harrell, and I am at Procter & Gamble in our communications function. However, I am really proud to be part of a team at P&G that has brought content to the forefront that helps us to discuss bias, microaggressions, and in some cases racism that certain communities, mostly the Black community, face. And through that work, the impact we're looking to make in terms of helping to provide empathy, understanding, discussion, but also change. And so I am just so thrilled to be on this stage with such amazing women who I am so proud to call my sisters as well, and just the work that we continue to do together.
Oh my gosh, following up these amazing women. Hi, everybody. I'm Cydney Tucker. I'm a journalist and documentary filmmaker. I am just really happy to be here right now with you all. And I would call myself a creator who's basically constantly trying to, I guess, enlighten people about, what's going on within our communities, but also making sure that we have diverse representation in what's being depicted, whether that's, achievements that's going on or just elements of Black joy. I think as a journalist, there's a little bit of yin yang in my practice. So I think within my journalism, obviously there are lots of elements of trauma that I'm often reporting on or producing content about. And then with my filmmaking, I strive to make it so that there's the other side of that where there are depictions of Black life and Black joy. And that's why I'm really happy to be here today with you guys.
I love that. And again, so happy to see all of you. And I'm so glad that we're bringing the Black girl magic here to South by Southwest EDU. So very proud to be part of this auspicious group. So I want to set the stage a little bit before I pose some questions. And I really began to think about this panel and started to do some research. And I came up on a lot of footage of Halle Berry, who, as you all know, is the first Black woman to receive the lead actress Oscar for her role in Monsters Ball. And I was really touched by what Halle Berry was talking about, how she thought at that time that this was going to be a moment for Black women and really kick in the door, not only for women in front of the camera, but also behind the camera, and also a quality of scripts and roles of multi-dimensional characters that she would have the opportunity to portray. Well, it's been 20 years since Halle Berry has won that Oscar, and since then, there hasn't been another Black woman to receive that Oscar for the lead actress. And it's not because of a lack of talent or Black women who were deserving of that prestigious award. So I just want to share some stats that have recently really pull this together, because I know we talk about this in our circles anecdotally, and certainly we hear it in the press, but the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media released a report titled Representations of Black Women in Hollywood, an examination of the portrayals of Black girls and women in film and television. And here's what they found. Black girls and women are 6.5% of the US population, but only 3.7% of leads or co-leads in the top 100 grossing films of the last, not year, but decade. So, discussing, I think, I don't know if that picked up on the mic, but
There's an eye roll.
It's a
There's
really
a couple eye rolls.
troublesome stat.
I'm so dead.
But we can point that while this figure has improved in some years, a major theme of our conversation today is it's an improvement, but it's not enough. Also, 1 in 5 of the Black leading women from the past decade have had a dark skin tone. So for me, that brings up when I think about Issa Rae and the great work that she's done with Insecure, or Ava DuVernay with Queen Sugar on, these are on the small screen, but such important images of Black women of all different colors and hues and hair textures, and really celebrating that throughout their shows. This other stat, 57% of Black leading women from popular films in the past decade are depicted with hairstyles that conform to European standards of beauty as opposed to natural hairstyles. So all I will say is today is that we are representing the natural girls and the curly girls, and really excited that we are representing that here today. So you all remember the film Hidden Figures, right? And we know that representation matters, and so we know from this study that Black women are now more likely to be depicted as working in STEM than other women of color and white women. Another important point that the study showed was that Black women are just as likely as women to be shown as a leader, right? And that's at 40% for both Black and white women. So again, we've made progress, but there's still so much work to do. The key thing to all of these statistics that we talked about, and I know you guys know this intimately, is that we don't have enough Black women in positions of decision-making power to decide what content gets put out there, who's going to star in that, and really being able to have people in front and behind the camera, part of the crew, part of the team that is pulling the talent together to tell these stories. And so it's really important that we have women like the three of you that are really bringing that to the fore and making that a priority. And so what we'd like to show right now is what happens when you have Black women in control of what's on the screen. And so I'm really excited to share, B. Monét, you know I'm about to talk about you, is Never Whisper Justice. We have a sizzle reel from their upcoming film called Black Girls, which is directed by none other than B. Monét. And so I believe everyone will see the reel right now.
This is not an illusion. This is the intersection of where we need to go.
Stop and listen to a Black woman's truth.
Being a woman of color is so multi-layered.
The term intersectionality, racism, and sexism are often overlapping, creating multiple levels of social injustice.
In the United States, there's a saying, life, liberty, and justice. Black people are still on life.
As women in particular, we're taught that if something doesn't work out, it's probably our fault. Our mistakes are ours alone, but victory is a shared benefit.
Why has it taken so long?
You exist in a world where nobody sees you, but everybody sees you.
In the United States, adults view Black girls as less innocent and more adult-like, starting as young as 5 years old.
That's how this system was designed to happen. We don't call it a caste system in this country. We're too enlightened for that, right?
We've changed the world with our mind.
Nobody had ever seen anybody like me on the air.
Body.
We are not going to look like we're white, which is always what the ideal is in the media.
Voice.
Many women, especially many Black women, we have all had that shut up moment.
And heart.
We're angry because we love our Black girls.
It's about systemic racism, it's about lack of education, lack of equal housing.
Black women are often overlooked, but so often prove they are the backbone of our democracy.
We have to have women who speak for the voiceless. Going backwards isn't an option, and standing still is not enough.
That is amazing. That is amazing, B. Monét. I cannot wait for Black girls to come out, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. But this is so powerful just to see. I've had a chance to get a peek of the sizzle, and it's incredible. And the messages that just in that reel is just really powerful. And many of the conversations that we've all had with friends and colleagues about some of the important issues that are confronted by Black women. So I want to kick off the discussion, hear from all of you. I know our audience wants to hear that as well. I want to remind everybody that we are very much looking forward to your questions. So again, please go to the South by Southwest EDU Go mobile app, say that 3 times fast, and click the engage button on the session page to submit your questions, and we'll take a look at them at the end of our discussion. So the first question I have for all of you is, I'm going to take it back to when you were all young, and tell me about who was that character, that woman or girl on TV, in film, or you saw streaming, because we're all representing different generations, or on social media that really impacted you, that really inspired you, and tell us why. So I'm going to work it this way, going backwards. So Cydney, please offer your thoughts.
Okay, so I definitely was not a normal, I wouldn't say not normal child, but I was always like a news junkie growing up. So I would like watch Sesame Street, and then I would watch 60 Minutes or like whatever, news program was going on. So at that time, like my family is very big on like NBC and whatever. So I grew up seeing a lot of like Soledad O'Brien, and Soledad O'Brien for me was definitely that figure of portraying me, like I could be a journalist one day, and not only that, but I could go on, to expand that field and go into documentary or go into, basically do anything I wanted to, because she had her own organization, she had all these things, and I loved that she couldn't be pigeonholed, and I loved how brilliant she was. And I also just loved that she was like a badass Black woman just out here doing the work, which is like, yes, exactly, snaps.
Wonderful. For me, so now, Rose, you're getting into sensitive. I'm about to tell my age here, but for me, it was 2 figures. The first was Jane Kennedy, and I just remember watching sports. I was probably with my dad and just saw this Black woman as a sports broadcaster. So for me, she broke a couple of barriers, right? It was one, Black woman, to broadcasting sports, which just recently we started seeing that come back in terms of the representation in that space. And then, when you look, she was like one of the first Black beauty queens of, I think, Miss Ohio, which, go figure, right? Exactly. So it was Jane Kennedy, and then it was Diana Carroll, Dynasty Days. So again, just seeing a woman represent in a way that was, again, not in the stereotypical manner, coming from a place of strength and power, quite honestly, even though the show was a lot going on. But, just being able to have those 2 strong figures, but in places that we have never seen Black women before depicted during that time frame.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
Gosh. I'm thinking of Brandy, because I, 90s kid, super loved the fact that she was a writer, and the fact that she had like this nuclear family. Her dad was in her life, her mom was in her life, and I love that it wasn't a stereotypical depiction that we're always used to seeing. And I love that she was a writer, and I feel like maybe even just watching these shows kind of even put that little bubble inside me that made me feel like, maybe I can be a writer too. And then loved Oprah also, just loved how she would just draw out so much emotion and storytelling from her different interviewees, and just how she talked to someone, who was at the KKK, a KKK member, or someone who was like a soccer mom. She was able to just talk to a myriad of people, and I just love that about her so much. So I would say those 2.
I love that. Well, I'm gonna offer my thoughts on this as well. For me, growing up, born in Cleveland, Ohio, so that's why I was so happy when you mentioned that. So growing up, I thought I was going to be the next Diana Ross. And so wanted and thought that my career would be in music, ended up being a lawyer and going into politics, so go figure. But I saw Mahogany. And for me to see Diana Ross in that fullness, I think it was a film that I felt like had so many layers and really showed a woman highs and lows that I really was able to relate to, and of course all the, the magic that comes with Diana Ross, and it really impacted me, and I agree with so many of the examples that you've given, and I know, Cydney, for me, I also would be like watching a Yankee game, but before that, I was watching all kinds of news programs when kids were playing outside. I was consuming lots of news, so we are kindred spirits on things like that. But I want to get into pull the thread a little bit more in terms of, what are the recent trends in media and TV and film about the portrayals, both good and bad, of Black women. From your vantage points, tell me what you're seeing, and I'll let anybody who wants to start go first. Go ahead, Bea.
Yeah, I would say that there is very much an array of images, of diverse images right now, which I love, but I think that we're still getting really hooked on this conversation around diversity and inclusion, and we're forgetting that the industry was never made for us. Image making was not made for Black people at all. Even film stock was not for darker skin. So I think we still have to realize, yes, there is this facade of seeing a lot of us in ads and, posters, and it makes it feel like there's, this forwarding that's happening, but it's very much still not there. I think we're doing a great thing right now by having the conversation, but I think we can't excuse the performing that's happening. And I think Hollywood is still not ready to have that conversation, because I think it's still uncomfortable to see this person as the person that is giving folks who don't look like them orders. I still think that is very much happening. I see it happening very much on my commercial sets, or even just, other projects that I've done, that it's still a strain, unfortunately.
Now, I would just add that, to your point, Rose, with the statistics you started out with, right? While we're making progress, there's still so much more to do. And I think a large part of it is when we look at the types of images or what representation looks like, we still have imagery that is more stereotypical versus showing the vastness of the Black experience and of Black women, which I think is where still the work needs to be done, right? I'm so excited about the film Black Girls to come out, because I think that starts to give an additional glimpse of what we already know here on this stage, right? And what is so important. So what I would say is that while, yes, we're making progress in terms of, I think having streaming platforms now and, seeing content and shows that aren't necessarily on the mainstream, but being able to go and see them elsewhere, how do we make sure, again, it is showing the vastness of the Black experience and the experiences that we uniquely bring to the table as Black women. So that's what I see, but I, again, am excited because, as we all know, the work to be done is how do we get more people in the decision-making space? How do we bring forward more opportunities or access to be able to expand that view and what we see? So that's where, I get excited in terms of where the opportunity is. But I am encouraged because I also am seeing that there is advancement in the area, but more to do.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Just Snaps all around, echoing all of this. Yes, yes, and yes. I don't even know where to start with this. And it's such a topic that I'm very passionate about. I'm not from the Hollywood side of things, but obviously representation matters on that side. I'm going to speak more so from the documentary, journalistic media side. So, I've worked in the A through Z alphabet city of broadcast entities, and it wasn't, I was at the Today Show, I was at Dateline, I was at CBS, and I was at Al Jazeera, and, I felt like whenever I was on a team, not only was I the only Black person in the room all the time, but I was always the person advocating for stories from our community. And what I was always confronted with was oh, that's a great story, but we've already done an Africa story for the season, or we've already done, and the fact that these are the things that come out of people's mouths, right? These are executive producers, these are the heads of the heads that think that this rhetoric is okay. And I would say not a lot of that has changed. I chose of all times to become a freelancer during the pandemic, which is a whole other story. We won't get into that. But I was freelancing and I worked for the New York Times Presents, which is this award-winning show on Hulu and FX. Again, I was the only Black producer on that show. I was originally hired to work on the second Breonna Taylor episode. So I think it's a mix. There is a conversation that needs to be had about diversity and inclusion, but also what that means realistically in terms of the images that are being portrayed, right? And not also being pigeonholed to stories that are about Black trauma or Black death, and only being hired for those, because that not only does that perpetuate certain images that are very toxic to our community, albeit they be really real, but it also makes it so that we don't see elements of ourselves in achievement or in elements of joy, and that really weighs down on the psyche of not only the people who are viewing that content, but the creators making that content. And I think that's very dangerous. So there's way more work to be done. And thank God there are these ladies doing it. So.
Yeah, no, I think you all are absolutely right. And I even think from the boardroom to in front of being in front or behind the camera, these are the challenges that we are all experiencing. And to your point about how we are presented, those narratives that are talked about in terms of, you're oh, I know what's going to happen. Or that would have been a great character if they would have allowed that to develop in the character. And I also think oftentimes when you see in newsrooms conversations about Black women, you often feel why aren't there Black women on the show talking about Black women? They bring everybody else but Black women into those spaces to have those conversations. And I think for the area that we've worked in and have connected on related to politics, I really look at, the ways in which big screen, small screen, how the vice president is being portrayed, and reading articles about, people not liking her laugh, which is just, but she's brilliant, she's smart, she's historic, she is achieving so much as a vice president, but yet they want to reduce us to this one stereotype, to really not present us in the way that I like to say, in a three-dimensional way. So, B. Monét, I'm going to bring it back to you with the film Black Girls, and talk about your process for bringing this film together, because to me, this is going to be the real talk film that you're going to bring your friends of all backgrounds to say, you see, when I'm in these spaces, this is why. These are the challenges in a way that is, unabashed. And so talk about what you want people to get out of the film. What are the various narratives that are being put forth in the film, and if you can share any information as to when it's going to come out, so we can look out for it. Thank you.
Yeah. I would say certain topics that I'm very excited to be discussing in the film are maternal health, colorism and beauty politics, wages of desirability, as well as pain and love. Love meaning love of self, love of partner, love of community. We're not trying to, I feel show this negative portrayal necessarily of Black women, because I feel like we get that enough. But for us, it's showing the diversity within our race. You know, being a Black woman is not a monolithic experience. Exactly. Even all of us being on this panel, we all represent so many different backgrounds and, you know, experiences in our childhoods. Like, you know, I love that we're talking about that, you know, so I hope that people of different races will come out and show out and see the film. Even if you're not necessarily a Black woman, our hope is that you will see yourself and empathize with these women who look different than you. We also have been very intentional, and I say we because it's not just my film. I have Black women who are on this project with me, as well as other folks of color, because we are really trying to be, I guess you could say, the Rainbow Coalition. Yeah. So, you know, I have, you know, a Latino cinematographer who's, you know, creating beautiful images, and I'm not able to be around today, but I've seen some stills that they have made, and I'm just like blown away with the fact that we're showing, again, the diversity of Black women, lighter skinned women, browner skinned women, darker skinned women, who don't always get to share their experience. And we're saying, we get to see you, Black women, share with us your humanity. So hopefully people, again, of different backgrounds will see that from the film.
I love it. I love it. I really can't wait, and I'm glad that the composition of the team is really reflective of that experience. And I think there'll be so many rich conversations that happen, and I hope in classrooms that the film can be shown so that we are having these conversations, and for young Black girls to be able to see themselves and to know that there are women like all of you that have paved the way and are ready for them as sisters, and to help them through their own process.
And
so,
just to pick up on that too,
yes,
though,
of course.
is it's similar to the first question you asked us.
Sure.
About who or what did we see that influenced us. And so again, I think through this film, and as you said, in the classrooms or where young girls may see it, it'll hopefully give them also the same type of encouragement and hope and belief and aspirations like we've had in terms of who they see in front of the camera and what they can achieve and do.
Well,
I'm so excited about that.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm coming next to you, Crystal, because I really love what Procter & Gamble is doing right now with widening the screen, and also with the Queen Collective. And I just want to please share with the audience about both of those initiatives and how they got started, and who's being featured through the program.
Absolutely. So I'm so excited to share. It's actually probably about almost a year ago where we launched our Widen the Screen anthem film, as well as the initiative. And what's important about Widen the Screen, the part that we say behind that is we're widening the screen to widen our view. So to your point, it's about, you know, representation in front of and behind the camera, but through the whole media and creative ecosystem, which I think is a very important component and part to discuss and understand. So part of that is one of our signature programs called the Queen Collective, where B. Monét and I first met, and that we're just so excited about. We're going on our 4th year, but the Queen Collective is a talent development and mentorship program for young up-and-coming filmmakers. And what's exciting about that is it gives them opportunity, I would say, access, and investment, so that we start to see the stories that need to be told coming from a Black woman's point of view, which is, again, very important, as we're saying. So it just helps us in terms of expanding what we see, in terms of, like I was saying earlier, the vastness of the Black experience. So we see the joy, we see the love, we see the beauty within that through storytelling with the Queen Collective. Another important part of Widen the Screen that I want to bring forward is it's also making sure that we look at the whole system, So, you know, while we have programs such as the Queen Collective, which provides the content, it's how do we make sure the content is then seen? So working with Black-owned and operated media companies to make sure that we have a place for the content to go and to make sure that it gets exposure. And so as many eyes can see, again, the difference in the story and bring forward the full humanity of the Black experience. And then another part of it is creating a pipeline, but it's creating a pipeline across, you know, in marketing agencies, in corporations where I uniquely sit, making sure that we have the diversity of the people in those rooms that can help voice, you know, our truths, help bring forward, you know, content, help with some of the decision making. So think about that across what we do from the marketing teams all the way through some of our agency partners that we work with into where films may be distributed. So we're looking at it to be truly a holistic approach to making sure that we can widen the screen again with the intent to deliberately widen the view that people see.
Beautiful. So Crystal just mentioned, B. Monét, that you are have been part of the Queen Collective. So talk a little bit about your experience.
Oh man, do we have enough time? It was such a, like, for me, a beautiful experience because it was actually an initiative that does what it says it's going to do, but then even more. I feel like a lot of initiatives don't really give folks that exposure that they need, but for me and Haley, Queen Collective, like, we almost felt like, I feel like Cinderellas, you know, like we both went to NYU, and that, yes, that was a great experience, but it was great to have cultivated mentorship that was a little bit different and so personalized, as well as like folks, you know, on the Tribeca and the P&G, as well as Queen Latifah, giving us, you know, feedback on constant cuts of our film, saying, how can we make this stronger? How can we dramatize, you know, this point? Because my film was about a Black woman who unfortunately was sexually assaulted one night, but I did not want to harp on that. I wanted to still show that this woman is finding healing, and healing is not a linear journey. So it was so great having the feedback of someone like Crystal and the rest of the P&G staff, and just having that, oh my gosh, like I said, a Cinderella moment where we also were in essence, you know, like that never happens to filmmakers, where we actually get to speak to the people directly. And so I just appreciate the fact that you guys even created something like Queen Collective, and that, you know, people are walking the walk and talking the talk. And I think that's different than your average initiative, I would say. So
thank you. Just to build one on that too, as you mentioned the importance of having partners like a Queen Latifah and Flavor Unit and Tribeca Studios. But what I'm even still learning and seeing, I had the opportunity to go to a set of a big TV show that Queen Latifah's on now. But what was so amazing about that experience is that we also could see the diversity that she is also advocating for behind the scenes. Yeah. So when you looked at the cast and the crew on that set, it was very diverse. And that is an operating principle that her, as well as Flavor Unit, try to make sure they instill as they go into those programs. And that's what we're trying to do also with the Queen Collective, is how do we make sure the cast and crew that's supporting B. Monét is diverse, and how do we start to bring forward more diversity there? So it's like the ripple effect, you know, where it starts, but then we see that go out to all other shows and opportunities to continue to make sure that we're building in that diversity and reflection and representation.
So building upon that, tell me, you know, we see particularly, I know, Cydney, you've worked in social justice spaces as well, and, you know, in recent years with the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and conversations around race, inequality that have taken place, that a lot of corporations, certainly in media, are just throwing money at the problem, right? In some places, you know, you'll see content that you'll note that is a difference, and that was money well spent. But talk to us about how do we make concrete change beyond the entry level for Black women to be in the C-suites, to be in the decision-making power, to not only green light films, TV shows, and other types of projects, but to say, yes, this topic may be uncomfortable, or this approach to this story, other than trauma, but really talking about triumph, is extremely important. What really, for those who are out there who are really interested in making those changes, let's start with you, and we'll work our way down the line, but I think that's extremely important because there's a lot of money that is in the marketplace that we want to know where can people access that, but what is the pressure that needs to happen both externally and internally to ensure that beyond just, you know, I was a prop person, which is important training to get, but to get to the decision table.
Yeah, to be frank, it's an uphill battle, right? Like, I would say, you know, I gave kind of like a little micro story about being the only Black person in the room. Well, you know, once the racial reckoning happened, it was almost as if, and I'm sure this is the same thing I was seeing also happening on the Hollywood side that Bea and Crystal can talk about, but it was like an explosion. All of a sudden it was like, we went from like not existing to everyone being like, oh, do you know a Black director? Do you know a Black producer? Do you know this Latino person? Do you know, like, oh my gosh, BIPOC filmmakers exist. And it's like, we've always existed, and we're not just here to tell your trauma stories about how you think, you know, we fit in this like one box. I think it's important for, you know, Black filmmakers and other BIPOC filmmakers to reach out to people like Bea, Monét, and myself. I would say, I'm gonna do a little Spelman shout out here, but Bea and I both went to Spelman, and so I think it takes a very particular type of person, a resilient, you know, individual to be in this industry as a person of color. You're going to be told no so many times, right? But it's in the no's that you're able to kind of pave your own way and find community, right? Like, I'm part of this group that's amazing that's called Brown Girls Doc Mafia, and it's Black and brown women filmmakers, right? They come from narrative, Hollywood, they also come from the doc space. So many of them are Emmy winners, Oscar winners, and it's like, it's a beautiful space because we realize we don't need these white production companies. We can make our own production companies and make content that matters. Like, we can cross-collaborate and diversify the space on our own terms. And I think the industry is just slowly starting to realize that these BIPOC filmmaking organizations exist. You know, there's not just Brown Girls, there's ADOC, which is Asian documentary filmmakers. There's Forward Doc, which is, you know, disabled filmmakers. There's undocumented filmmakers. There are all these collectives, and we're all doing the same work to make the industry better. And it's not until we kind of like make our own spaces and develop our own tables that like the industry is going to just, you know, turn themselves around hopefully and like wake up and be like, whoa, like we need to get it together.
Yeah. So for us, one of the things that we're trying to make sure we're very deliberate about is the actions and the impact. To your point, with the racial reckoning, we did see a huge amount of investment coming in to the communities and to partners and things like that. And absolutely, that's needed, but just as importantly, it's what are the actions you're going to take to make sure that we are making a systemic change in the systems that exist that are creating, call it the barriers, right? So that's where we're trying to make sure we have a focus and an impact on how do you know, make systemic change there. And so again, it's through the programs where we can actually bring in filmmakers and have that content. But again, it's not just to have the content. Where will it go? Where will it be seen? You know, making sure that it goes to distribution houses. The one thing I would just say too is, while yes, P&G is here and in the space, we need others. We need other industry members and companies to step up with us, right? Because, as you said, Cydney, and as we know, B. Monét and Rose, the filmmakers are there. Yeah. The diverse filmmakers are there.
They like to act like we don't exist, but
exactly, but you exist, right? And not only do you exist, you provide some amazing work, and again, tell some really great stories that need to be told. So we need others to, step up with us to make sure that we can really make that change, and again, that systemic and lasting impact, to make sure the doors stay open for our creators and filmmakers, as well as, again, building that pipeline, that exists behind, that needs to push it forward as well, right? Again, about how do we make sure we have the decision makers in the room. And if it's not totally at that point where you get to being that decision maker, that the voice and the representation is in the room. Because I think that's probably even more tragic if the voice isn't in the room to at least speak up and provide additional perspectives. So, again, I think that's where the opportunity still exists, and where we know we could make a really lasting change, but we're also calling for others to join us in doing this so that we can make either a bigger and more lasting impact.
Yes, I'll keep it, yeah.
Yeah.
Super short, but no, because I love this topic that we're talking about. I feel like we could talk about it for hours. Yep. And as Cydney said, there's so many resources out here. Like there's Bid Dash Black, and then there's also Free the Work, which allows you to see different types of people, whether it's a colorist or cinematographer or director, and you can find literally anything that you're looking for in the film industry. But I think it's also not enough that we have those spaces. As you said, Crystal, we need other partners to championing us. And so I think one way filmmakers can pay it forward is if you can't do a job, like for instance, if I can't do a commercial job, I send the executive producer or head of production a list of names.
Yeah.
No, it's not my job to send them all these other people, but if it means that it's gonna help someone who looks like me, who needs a chance, who needs an opportunity, I need my friends with me as I champion and go through this industry alone, not alone, but together. I think Issa Rae is always talking about networking across and not just looking at the pie in the sky, the person who's up here, but looking at who's to your right or who's to your left. And so I think that's a great way of just us also taking accountability of this industry, yes, that wasn't made for us, but how can we also, in our little steps, just find a way to challenge it, So I think that that's one way. And then with executives, we need, because it's just like we need folks to take a chance on hiring, and it's not just a diversity hire. It's not just, let me just hire this Black or brown or Asian person or trans or queer person. Hire them because they're the best person for the job.
Right, exactly.
And by hiring them for that job, that will also make it more of a representative story because they're able to speak to an area or a community that you may not be able to, and that's okay. But you got to admit that. So that's my 2 cents on that.
So I love the points that you made about when you can't do a particular job, how you pay it forward to other women of color in the space. And I've always said about the word empowerment, that empowerment is not about what you receive, it's to the person to your left and right, and how you can provide a seat at the table or to assist them. So I love that that's happening, and I hope that that's a big takeaway from those of you who are already in the space, that you're hearing these 3 women and their ideas. And so as we are closing out our discussion and moving into Q&A, I do think a lot about the young people that may be watching today, the young Black women that are watching today, who are inspired by your words, your leadership, and all that you're doing. And so what are the pearls of wisdom, again, thinking back to when you started in the business, what advice would you give them? What little, nuggets of information that if you think to yourself now, if I knew back then what I know now, what would that be? And what would you share with Black women who are entering in film?
Yeah. Go out and make it. Yeah. Stop waiting.
Yeah.
I think for a long time I've been procrastinating, tattling on myself, but waiting for permission. And I think don't wait for permission. You have something birthing inside of you. Let the world know that. You were given these gifts for a reason, so don't sit on them. I think it's almost like a disservice to this world to not to do that. So I would say that.
Yep. Geez, where to start? I would just say, know that your voice and your lived experience matters. It matters. And it's important to share that with others, because you never realize the impact you may make on someone else that will change actions, that will change decisions, that will open doors. So just know wherever you uniquely sit, you can make a difference, and that your voice and your lived experiences really matter. And so please share them.
Man, this is such good advice. I wish I did hear this. I would say never shrink yourself down. Like never shrink yourself down, never conform yourself to whatever structure you think will fit into the larger system of things. I think there's a lot of, we need to decolonize this industry. Like there's a lot of white supremacy that's embedded in it. A lot of this industry is designed for cis white men, right? Like do not shrink yourself down, because in doing that, you're stripping back your character, right? It's a mental, physical toll, and it also diminishes what's precious about you, right? Exactly what Bea was saying, exactly what Crystal was saying. Like, let that part of you shine, right? Just let it out, let it free. Yeah. And that's where the beauty happens. That's where the magic happens. And I think we need more Black girl magic. We need more BIPOC magic. Let all the magic, be out there, and just do it.
Yep. Yes, I'll give 2 snaps to that. So thank you so much. We're going to move into our Q&A portion with our audience here in Austin, and those of you who are online, and thank you for your support. So you see I took my glasses off because I needed to read that screen, so thank you so much. So the first question is, how do we ensure, this one comes from Cheryl, how do we ensure that recent attention to diversity and inclusion on screen and behind the camera is long-lasting and not a blip? And I do think that's such an important question, understanding like we move, in this day and age, the way we're consuming news and information, we move from one crisis to another in a nanosecond. So please, who wants to start off with that question?
Go, Crystal, go.
I was going to say, really, ladies? No, I think it's like we were saying. So one, realizing that there's still so much more to do, and we need partners in the space. And so it's going to take all of us to make sure, again, that we're making systemic change, long-lasting change, which this is about. So as we've all said, and again, with the stats that you've provided, this is not a sprint. This is going to be, and unfortunately is, a marathon, and that it's going to continue to take continued action, work, focus, and deliberate action to make sure that we're making the change that we all know needs to happen and needs to happen. So that's a big part. So how do we continue to bring forward the resources, the access, opportunity, and investment that's needed to continue to make sure that we're moving everyone forward in the space, and again, making that lasting change.
Okay. I'm going to try to get through as many questions as possible in these remaining moments. So the next question comes from, I'm sorry, I can't read the first name. I'm sorry. Lisa. Thank you so much. Thank you, Lisa, for your question. How much progress has been made in diversifying the distribution and marketing of BIPOC content?
Not that much, Miss Lisa. when you look at, the Oscars of this year, or even, I guess you could say 5 to 10 years, in the last 5 to 10 years, why is it that we even had to say Oscar so white? That should show you that even from an Oscar standpoint to the indie level, there's still, unfortunately, a disconnect. And even though, again, don't get hypnotized, because again, commercials are propaganda, so it makes it look like we're doing the work, but until the infrastructure is changed and shaken up, it's gonna be the same conversation. And I think it's just so troubling how many times we're talking about this so much. And I would love to hear like other people's thoughts as in regards to like, how can we shake it up? Like in a way that is not just talking about it, but actually the action, behind it. But sorry, Miss Lisa, we're working though. We're working on it.
Yes,
I was
please.
just going to add that also, again, uniquely where you sit, but if you're in a company similar to P&G, where we are one of the world's largest advertisers, how do we make sure in terms of the conversations that we're having with our partners that they understand, that we do have this content and that there is opportunity here to show it, but partner with us to do that, right? And I would say in doing so, we have had partners, networks to come on board and to make sure that, we are providing a distribution channel, for the content that B is making, and what we want to see. But again, it's going to take all of us asking those questions and all of us having those conversations to make sure we have the change and bring it through.
So we've got two questions that I think we're able to do in the amount of time that we have left. But thank you, Lisa, for the question. I still can't read the next name. Wenny? Okay, I'm sorry if I mispronounced it, but I want to make sure to acknowledge the questions. How are you amplifying HBCU film students in your work? That is a fantastic question.
I love it. Hey, Howard grad, so we're all HBCU up here.
Oh my gosh. Well, first and foremost, B and I were different years at Spelman, but when I was at Spelman, I was an English major because they didn't have a journalism or media entity. They were focusing mostly on the STEM side, like all the money was going there. So I decided to, focus on English, but I feel like now it's great because Ann Jeanette Levert, shout out, is heading the documentary program there. And B and I have done talks with, film grads there or people who are interested in film. And it's just so exciting and so great to see this like next generation, and they are hungry. They're out here. They're like Gen Zers at the like nth degree where they're like, oh no, we're over this. Like we're making our films today. Like I'm gonna go out and shoot on my iPhone or my busted Android that has like the glass is cracked, and I'm still gonna, they are out there doing it. And I think we're both very open, and everyone up here is very open. And so like reach out to us. I feel like HBCU people, like we're just a tight-knit community, and like I am here and we're all here to uplift you. So just feel free to reach out to us, and like, our handles, I'm sure they're somewhere in the stratosphere. We're in a virtual reality now, pandemic reality. You can find us.
It's up on the screen right now.
Oh yeah,
sharing
you can find
handles.
us.
So please reach out. And I also think that, to your point, Crystal, earlier, that I think in spaces like this at South by Southwest EDU, it's so important that this conversation took place here. So this is my first time in Austin. I hope I'm invited back, and I hope we can come back for the part 2 for the premiere of your film. And so we are in under 2 minutes. And so I love this question because at the McSilver Institute, we really look at issues of mental health, particularly within our community. And it's a lot when you're a first, when you're breaking boundaries, when you're really doing it, when you're outspoken, when you are unabashed about your Blackness, there is a toll. Being the only is a toll. I need to wrap it up. So how do you prioritize your mental health while working in this industry, which may not give Black women the support they need? I need this to be super quick and so I can wrap up.
Rapid fire? Okay. Yoga. I teach yoga, but also like meditation, being with your people, community. Community is key, not knowing that you're not the only one going through it.
We're in a minute.
I was going to say community and network. Having sisters here that I can talk to, as well as, close friends, just to support me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so honored to be with all of you today. I want to thank Never Whisper Justice, Chad, JT. I want to thank Miles and Cheryl from McSilver. I want to thank B. Monét, Crystal Harrell, and Cydney Tucker for your time, for coming out. I think this is the first time, I know this is the first time I'm speaking in front of people and not looking into a screen. So South by Southwest EDU, y'all did the damn thing. Thank you so much. Thank you for the conversation.
And thank you, Rose. Thank you, Rose.
Thanks, Rose. Yes. Fantastic, for real.
Yeah, she's like, yes.